Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be diving in again.
Right. So this is where we take the source material you provide, really get into it, and pull out the key insights, the bits that make you go, huh.
Exactly. We sort through it all, find the connections, give you the context, so you come away feeling like you really get it, not just skim the surface.
And today, wow, we have some excerpts from a real classic you've given us, Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, it's iconic stuff. We're looking at these snapshots he gives us of London and Paris, late 18th century, right on the edge of massive, massive change.
Revolution looming. And Dickens, he's just brilliant at showing huge historical shifts through individual lives, isn't he? These characters get swept up in it.
Totally. The source material here is so rich. The descriptions are incredible. The people unforgettable. You feel the history happening to them.
It's not dusty dates and facts, it feels lived. So our mission today with these specific excerpts is to really unpack them. Who are the main players we meet? What are the key moments shown?
And especially that contrast he draws. London versus Paris, around 1780. It's incredibly stark, almost hard to believe side by side.
We want to get at the why, right? What forces were pushing things towards that breaking point, according to Dickens in these passages.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
To see the roots of the revolution as he presents them through these characters and scenes.
Okay, should be fascinating. Might get a bit dark in places, I suspect, but definitely insightful. Let's dig in.
Let's do it.
All right, so the excerpts jump us right into 1780. And the opening lines, they really set a tone, don't they? This idea that it was a time described only in superlatives.
Yeah, the superlative degree of comparison only. It was the best, it was the worst. It immediately signals exaggeration, maybe official spin versus reality.
It makes you suspicious from the get-go. Like, okay, what's really going on beneath that rhetoric?
And then he immediately gives us the rulers. A king and queen in England, a king and queen in France, side by side.
And that weird detail about the large jaws, both kings.
It's such a Dickensian touch, isn't it? Small physical detail, but placing it right at the top like that, it links them. Maybe hinting at, I don't know, a shared stubbornness. Or just his way of saying these regimes had common flaws.
Feels like it puts them in the same boat somehow. Suggests the problems weren't just local, maybe something about power in that era.
But he doesn't stick with the royals for long. He dives straight down to the street level. And it gets grim fast.
Yeah, the reality for ordinary folks. Putting to death was a recipe much in vogue. That line just chills you.
It wasn't exceptional. It was standard practice. And the list of crimes. It's kind of shocking. Forgery, sure. Bad banknotes, coining money.
But also opening someone else's letters illegally, stealing small amounts, horse theft, okay, maybe more serious then, but still.
It seems disproportionate, and he contrasts it with nature's remedy. Like nature heals, but the law just prescribes death. It's bleak.
And it wasn't just the official executions. The general vibe was lawless and brutal.
Definitely. Prisoners fighting guards in London jails, and the guards just firing blunderbusses into the jail. That's described as the majesty of the law. It's chaotic.
It shows the authorities using brute force, but maybe not effectively. Like it's harsh, but not controlled.
And it wasn't just the lower classes causing trouble. Thieves at court, stealing diamond crosses right off people's necks. It suggests the rot went high up.
Right, and that fight in St. Giles between soldiers and the mob, both sides just blasting away at each other.
And the scariest part, the text says nobody thought any of these occurrences much out of the common way.
That's the bit that gets me. This level of violence, this lack of basic order, was just normal. Background noise.
Tells you a lot about the society, doesn't it? Heavy punishments, but not much real safety or stability. Maybe the harshness wasn't actually solving anything.
Maybe just breeding more violence. Okay, so let's zoom in on London first, based on these bits. Tellson's Bank by Temple Bar gets a big introduction.
Oh, Tellson's. It feels like a character itself.
Right.
Dickens paints it as this deliberately ancient place, very small, very dark, very ugly, very incommodious.
Like it's proud of being uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it's not just the building. He says it's old-fashioned in the moral attribute, too. What does that suggest?
Feels like deep, ingrained conservatism, right? Resisting any kind of change, not just physically, but in how they operate, their whole worldview. Sticking to the old ways no matter what.
And that attitude shows up in how they treat customers. If you need to see the partners, the house, They stick you in this back room called the condemned hold.
Where you're supposed to meditate on a misspent life. It's darkly funny, but also really severe. Like, doing serious business is akin to facing execution.
It underlines that stern, unforgiving vibe,
Mm.
especially if you were maybe in financial trouble.
And the partners themselves, these old guys peering at signatures through dingy windows, behind iron bars, it feels like a prison
A
itself.
fortress of tradition, yeah. Locked away, keeping the modern world out.
And it's here we properly meet Mr. Jarvis Lorry.
The ultimate man of business. Totally devoted to Tellson's. He even calls himself a speaking machine at one point.
Like he's just programmed by the bank. Suppressing anything personal?
That's the initial impression.
Right.
But the text hints there's more to him. He has stores and secrets connected to the bank's clients. Suggests a hidden depth, maybe a more human side linked to certain customers.
Right, he's not just a machine. And then, Jury Cruncher.
Ah, Jerry. Classic Dickens. The description is so vivid, the spiky hair like a wall, the close-set eyes. Instantly memorable, slightly shady.
And described with heavy irony as an honest tradesman.
Which is hilarious because we immediately find out about his other trade, his night job.
His fishing, not for actual fish though. The tools given away, rusty shovel, sack, crowbar.
It's body snatching, grave robbing. A grim reality back then, supplying bodies for medical schools, dissection.
The text hints at that connection, right? When he complains about his wife flopping, praying, he seems to think her prayers might, interfere with the supply and demand for corpses, maybe affecting the doctors who need them. It's a weird, superstitious logic.
And his relationship with his wife is, well, it's brutal. He physically attacks her for praying against his prophet, knocks her head against the bed.
Yeah, it's really unpleasant. His view is clear. She should just honor and obey and stay out of his business, no matter how illegal or grim it is.
And that detail about no fish for breakfast when his night's work fails. It just hammers home what kind of fishing he's doing. Grim domestic life tied to a grim trade.
So, London. Old-fashioned, rigid on the surface, but with these strange, dark undercurrents. Violence, secrets, dodgy dealings. Now, let's pivot to Paris. The contrast is, well, it's huge.
Huge is right.
Yeah.
We go from Tellson's gleam to the almost cartoonish opulence of Monsignor.
The chocolate ritual. That says it all, doesn't it? He needs 4 attendants just to serve him hot chocolate.
Could not dispense with 1. Must have died of 2. It's pure satire, highlighting the absurd level of ceremony and the sheer waste of human effort involved in maintaining this lifestyle.
And it wasn't just him. That farmer general guy, the tax collector, 30 horses, 24 male servants, 6 body women. It's mind-boggling excess.
Just mountains of resources poured into one person's status and comfort. And the text points out it goes beyond the truly rich. Loads of hangers-on, people pretending to belong to Monsignor's circle, getting cushy public jobs.
Even doctors making fortunes off imaginary disorders of the wealthy. It paints a picture of a whole system built on feeding off this extreme wealth, often dishonestly.
Dickens calls it a leprosy of unreality, a moral sickness. Their high society manners are about being indifferent to anything genuinely human.
That detail about the fashionable mothers being detached from their babies, contrasted with the peasant women holding those close, it's powerful, shows a deep alienation from basic human connection.
A complete disconnect. They're living in this bubble of performance and indulgence, totally unaware of or indifferent to the reality outside.
Which brings us crashing down to that reality, Saint Antoine. Poverty, desperation, and this simmering rage, the scene with the spilt wine cask. It's unforgettable.
It really is. People just swarm it, drinking wine mixed with mud right off the street, licking the broken bits of wood, building little dams out of mud to catch the last drops.
It's not just about spilled wine. It's about the desperate need it reveals. People living so close to the edge that muddy wine is a treasure.
And hunger is everywhere in Saint Antoine. It's written on the empty shelves, the lack of firewood, the smokeless chimneys. The streets are filthy, but have no garbage because anything remotely edible would be scavenged.
The bad bread, the dodgy sausage meat described as dead dog preparation, the rattling bones with the chestnuts. Hunger isn't just a feeling. It's the defining condition of the place.
It's literally etched into the environment and the people. And this is the fuel for the revolution, clearly.
And presiding over this neighborhood, we meet Monsieur and Madame Defarge.
The wine shopkeepers. But they're more than that. They're leaders, organizers in Saint Antoine. A kind of local authority simmering beneath the official one.
And Madame Defarge. Always there. Always watching. Always knitting.
And the text is very clear. That knitting is not a pastime. It's a register. She's knitting, knitting, still knitting, seeing things a long way off.
It's ominous. She's recording names, right? Weaving a list of people marked for vengeance when the time comes.
A silent, deadly ledger. And Monsieur Defarge talking to customers using that code name, Jacques.
That confirms it. There's a network, a secret society planning, organizing. It's not just random anger, it's directed.
Exactly. The Jacques are the revolutionaries, passing messages. It shows the groundwork being laid. The storm isn't just coming, it's being actively prepared.
So London's dark and repressed. Paris is this powder keg of extreme wealth and extreme poverty with organized dissent bubbling just below the surface. A really volatile mix. Now let's get to that phrase, recall to life.
Yeah, that's crucial for the early part of the narrative here. It first pops up during Mr. Lorry's coach journey to Dover.
Right, he's traveling through the dark, the mist, thinking about the risks of the road, but also about his business, this mission he's on.
And he keeps thinking about digging someone out. He imagines this person buried away for almost 18 years, answering his mental question with recalled to life. It's about resurrection, bringing someone back from a kind of living death.
And Jerry Cruncher makes the connection later, doesn't he, after Darnay gets acquitted in London?
Yes. Laurie sends him off with the message acquitted, and Jerry thinks to himself, if you'd said recalled to life again, I'd have understood. He sees the parallel escaping execution is like being brought back from the dead, just like Dr. Manette being brought back from prison.
It reinforces that theme of return from oblivion, whether it's actual prison, the threat of death, or maybe just a life so broken it feels like non-existence. Laurie's job is the first literal case. Get Dr. Manette out.
So Laurie meets Lucie Manette in Dover. She's young, 17, pretty, goldy hair, blue eyes. And he has this incredibly awkward task.
Telling her the father she thinks died years ago is actually alive. Found.
He really struggles, tries to keep his man of business hat on, calls himself a speaking machine, frames it all as concerning a customer of Tellson's.
He tells this veiled story about someone suffering terribly, a child spared the truth by being told her father was dead, trying to break it gently.
But Lucie just cuts through it all. For the truth! Oh dear, good compassionate sir, for the truth. Her raw emotion just shatters his professional facade.
And he gets totally flustered, right? Tries to bring her back to business by asking about math problems. It's so clumsy, almost funny in its awkwardness.
Terribly awkward, but the cat's out of the bag. Her world is turned upside down.
So they go to Paris to get the doctor. And the place he's being kept, the description really emphasizes the poverty and the weight of the moment.
Yeah, it's in a crowded, older part of Paris, a dark, vile staircase. You feel the grimness. Lucie and Laurie feel dread and terror climbing up. Defarge guides them.
And the room itself, just a small garret, used for firewood originally. Dim, dark window that closes like a door. A cell, basically.
And there he is, Dr. Manette, white-haired, bent over making shoes, haggard eyes, barely present, answering questions like, good day, from a distance, utterly absorbed in the shoemaking.
And the most devastating part, when Laurie asks his name, he gives his prison number, 105 North Tower.
His identity is just gone, erased by years of solitary confinement and trauma. He has no memory of why he was locked up, doesn't even know if he wants to be recalled to life. I can't say, he replies, just heartbreaking.
But there's that tiny spark. Connected to Lucie's hair, he kept a couple of golden hairs in a scrap of cloth from before.
Yeah, a tiny link to his past. He winds them around his finger, and when he sees Lucie's hair, he recognizes it. A faint memory flickers. She had laid her head upon my shoulder that night.
His reaction to her is complex. Fear, wonder, confusion. But he finds comfort in her voice, always turns towards her, and he's so submissive, like someone broken by long imprisonment.
Even when they leave, he has no clue how he got there, still identifies by his prison number. That question, I hope you care to be recalled to life, and his, I can't say, it hangs there. His return is just the very beginning of a long, fragile process.
It's not a switch flipped back on. It's a slow, painful recovery ahead, all depending on Lucie.
Exactly. Which leads us into the next phase, where these lives start to tangle together more complexly, back in London for Darnay's trial, than this fragile piece in Soho.
The trial at the Old Bailey, it's described almost like entertainment, isn't it? A public spectacle. Jerry Cruncher calls it like the play in Bedlam. Grim humor again. People
went to watch. Darnay is accused of treason, spying between France and England. Serious charges.
And the witnesses against him. The text makes them sound dodgy from the start. Barsad, the immaculate witness, who's really a spy. Cly, the servant, supposedly inspired by Barsad's lofty example, the Attorney General praising them. It all feels very suspicious.
Dickens uses that slightly ironic tone to clue us in. Lucie has to testify, which is awful for her. She talks about Darnay criticizing the war with America, calling it wrong and foolish, even mentioning George Washington, causes a real stir in court heresy, shows the political climate.
Dr. Manette testifies too, but more as a formality. His memory is still shattered. Can't identify Darnay for sure, can't recall conversations.
But his testimony is powerful in a different way. When he explains why his memory is gone as long imprisonment without trial, the text says it went to every heart. It shifts the mood, creates sympathy, even if it doesn't offer facts for Darnay.
Darnay's lawyer is Stryver, described as having a pushing way, aggressive.
Yeah, he tries to discredit Barsad and Cly, attack their characters, but the court isn't really buying it initially.
And then comes the key physical detail, the resemblance between Darnay and Sidney Parton.
People notice it, including Jerry. Although Carton's whole demeanor, sullen, dissipated, kind of hangdog, usually masks it. He looks rough compared to Darnay, but the underlying likeness is there, and it becomes crucial.
The tension mounts, and then acquitted. Relief washes over the court. Laurie, losing his business cool for a second, tells Jerry to rush the news to the bank.
And Jerry makes that connection again, recalled to life. He gets it now. Escaping death row is another kind of resurrection.
After the trial, Stryver is all puffed up, congratulating himself, pushing people aside. But there's that weird moment with Dr. Manette looking at Darnay.
Right. A strange, intense look. Dislike and distrust, not even unmixed with fear. It's fleeting, he gets distracted again, but it's a seed of doubt planted. A hint that something about Darnay disturbs the doctor on a deep level. Lucie gently redirects him.
So after that drama, life settles into a kind of rhythm in Soho. The house they set up there sounds like a refuge.
It really does. A quiet street corner. The sunny part of Mr. Laurie's life. A stark contrast to Tellson's darkness and the courtroom's tension.
The house itself, staid but cheerful, full of echoes, a harbor from the raging streets. It sounds peaceful. Courtyard, plane tree, an oasis.
And Miss Pross is central to this household. Lucie's fierce protector. Her ladybird.
She sounds like quite a character. Strong opinions, very English, hates anything foreign or imaginative, and apparently quite strong physically sent Mr. Laurie flying.
Yes. She's pure, unwavering loyalty and practicality, dedicated entirely to Lucie's well-being, a really grounding force.
And it's in this peaceful setting that Lucie has that strange fancy about the echoing footsteps.
Sitting under the tree, hearing sounds from far off, imagining crowds of people coming into their lives, she calls it a foolish fancy, but wonders if they're destined to come to all of us.
Massive foreshadowing, right? Seems innocent, but it's her intuition picking up on the future rushing towards them. All the people and events that will shatter this peace.
Definitely. Meanwhile, the doctor is slowly healing, becoming friends with Mr. Laurie, finding purpose in using his mind again, tutoring Darnay in French and English.
Which brings Darnay even deeper into the family circle, unknowingly drawing the shadow of the doctor's past closer.
And then there's Carton, still lurking in the background, mostly seen through Stryver's dismissive comments. Moroseness, sullen, disagreeable fellow.
Stryver thinks Carton's just wasting his talent living in Darnay's shadow, highlights Stryver's arrogance and Carton's quiet despair.
And Stryver's arrogance is off the charts when he tells Laurie he plans to propose to Lucie. He just assumes she'll say yes. Am I not eligible?
Laurie tries to warn him off subtly, doesn't he? Implying a sensible woman might refuse him.
Yeah, if you say she is sensible, then I am answered. But Stryver's so full of himself, he just thinks if she refuses, it's her folly. Can't conceive of being rejected.
But Carton, we see his hidden depths in that private talk with Lucie. It's heartbreaking.
Totally. He just pours out his soul, calls her the last dream of his wasted life. Expresses this profound sense of self-loathing, but also gratitude that she knows the truth about him, that she holds his memory kindly.
Lucie weeping for him. You feel the tragedy of his potential, drowned in despair.
And he says things like, all you can ever do for me is done. It feels like a farewell almost, hinting at something final, some act he might perform for her sake. It lays the emotional groundwork for what happens later.
So the stage is set, the calm before the storm, and those echoing footsteps are about to get very, very loud.
Yeah, part 4 slams us right into the French Revolution. Those echoes become awful, like a great storm, a dreadful sea rising. Yeah. The narrative shifts back to France, mid-July, 1789.
The storming of the Bastille. The text captures the chaos, right? The noise, boom, smash, and rattle, the sheer energy, bravery without stint, the crowd like a furious sounding of the living sea.
And Defarge is right in the thick of it. at his gun grown doubly hot,
Mm.
leading the charge.
Inside, once the guards surrender, the crowd floods in, shouting for the prisoners, the records, the secret cells, the instruments of torture, looking for proof of the old regime's cruelty.
They search Manette's old cell, find nothing at first. But crucially, his hidden writings are found later. That becomes vital.
And the prisoners who are released, 7 of them, described as scared, all lost, all wondering, plus the 7 dead prisoners whose bodies are carried out, a really grim tally.
Madame Defarge is there too, watching from a distance, knife in hand. Part of that sea of black and threatening waters, her face hardened in the furnaces of suffering. She's not just an observer, she's an active force.
And the immediate aftermath shows the brutality, the killing of Foulon, the mob's blind frenzy. It shows how quickly revolutionary justice turns into horrifying vengeance.
The violence spreads to the countryside too, described as a ruined country, peasants trying to get bread from stones, utter desperation.
The old power structures are collapsing. Nobles like Monseigneur are fleeing or being hunted down, hanged.
We see the Marquis Chateau burning, the village ringing the alarm bells. The building itself described like a Gorgon's head, cold, stony, oppressive, deserving its fate in the eyes of the revolutionaries.
And Gabelle, the loyal agent, gets caught up in it. Threatened, has to hide, eventually imprisoned. The mender of roads links this burning to the earlier injustice, the death of Gaspard's child under the Marquis's carriage wheels, connecting the cause and effect.
Madame Defarge's view is uncompromising. Nothing that we do is done in vain. Total belief in the revolution, fueled by generations of resentment. She wants vengeance, pure and simple.
And we see the spy networks in action again. Barsad, the English spy, tries to feel out Defarge, mentioning he knows Defarge looked after Dr. Manette.
Defarge plays it cool, but Madame Defarge signals silently with her knitting that they're aware of Barsad, shows their tight communication and deep knowledge.
Meanwhile, back in London, the revolution has knock-on effects. Tellson's is suddenly busy with French nobles fleeing with their money.
Which means Mr. Lorry has to go to Paris to look after the bank's interests there. Business calls again.
And that becomes the trigger for Darnay. He gets that letter from Gabelle, imprisoned in France, begging Darnay, as the Marquis' heir, to help him, saying he's imprisoned for being loyal to Darnay.
Puts Darnay in a terrible position. He hates his family's legacy, renounced the title, but feels this lingering responsibility, feels pulled back like by a lodestone rock. He tragically underestimates the danger.
Thinks his renunciation will protect him. A fatal mistake. His journey is ominous. Heavy mist, heavy heart leaving Lucie and their child. Feels like iron doors closing.
And as soon as he enters France, he's stopped constantly, treated like a criminal just for being an émigré returning.
Arrival in Paris means immediate arrest, called prisoner, thrown into La Force, solitary confinement, 5 paces by 4.5.
And the text notes, chillingly, that he starts thinking about his father-in-law, Dr. Manette. Now he understands that kind of imprisonment. He hears the unearthly sounds of revolutionary Paris at night.
And then Laurie arrives, finds out Lucie and the doctor have followed Darnay into this inferno. Just absolute shock and fear for them.
Everyone's now trapped in the eye of the storm. Which brings us to Part 5, Life Under the Terror, Dr. Manette's unexpected influence and the looming guillotine.
Lucie and her father arrive, Lucie distraught. But Dr. Manette, his past suffering suddenly makes him a hero to the revolutionaries.
Right. The Bastille prisoner becomes a figure of immense respect. People shout, "Live the Bastille prisoner! Help for his kindred!" His name becomes a shield, ironically.
He uses that influence immediately, tries to find out about Darnay, help him, manages to get that note out. Charles is safe. A small comfort.
Lucie starts that ritual, standing near the prison wall every day, just hoping Darnay might see her. And the wood sawyer nearby counting 1, 2, 3.
So sinister, she realizes he's counting the tumbrils going to the guillotine. A constant ticking clock of death.
The scene outside the prison is terrifying, people sharpening bloody weapons. But the doctor's status gives his family some protection, at least for a while.
But the stress, it's too much for the doctor. After Darnay gets arrested again, the text implies this leads to it, he has that relapse.
Back to the shoemaking bench. Working frantically, even when he can't see. The old trauma resurfaces.
Laurie notices, deeply worried, calls it a slight relapse, but it lasts 9 days. The return of the old pursuit.
Laurie handles it so carefully, talks to the doctor about a hypothetical, curious case of someone else relapsing under stress.
And the doctor knows. He admits it wasn't unforeseen that he dreaded it. Connects it to moments of extreme shock. It's tragic self-awareness.
Shows how fragile his recovery is. He agrees the tools should go, for Lucie's sake, but only when he's not looking, so he doesn't consciously miss them. Still so dependent, despite his public influence.
And this sets the scene for Darnay's second trial, before the Revolutionary Tribunal. Much more dangerous.
Carton's there, the black sheep, watching intently. Laurie, the doctor, Lucie, all there, desperate. Lucie's look towards Darnay is full of love and support.
Then the denunciation. Openly president. Brutal and direct.
And the names. Ernest Defarge, Thérèse Defarge, and then the bombshell. Alexandre Manette, physician.
Pandemonium in the court. Their hero denouncing his own son-in-law.
The denunciation is based on that hidden paper from the Bastille. The doctor's own account of why he was imprisoned, written in blood and soot years ago.
He details being called out to that horrific scene. The feverish young woman bound. The dying boy. The two aristocratic brothers responsible.
The boy's story is awful. His sister abducted by the younger brother for pleasure, her father dead from grief, the boy himself murdered for protesting, and his chilling name, 5 paces by 4.5, like the cell.
The young woman goes mad, counting her lost loved ones. My husband, my father, and my brother. Dies without giving her name.
And the brother's reaction. The elder congratulates the younger on her death. Just pure evil. Manette refused their money, and that's when he wrote the denunciation, condemning the brothers and their whole degenerate house, wishing them wiped out root and branch.
And the killer connection. The younger brother, the main perpetrator, was the previous Marquis Saint-Evremond, Charles Darnay's uncle.
Making Darnay, in the tribunal's eyes, the heir to this monstrous legacy, guilty by blood, an enemy of the Republic.
The verdict is instant, unanimous. Back to the conciergerie, and death within 24 hours.
Lucie collapses emotionally, but stays focused on Darnay. Laurie hears the cheers outside and feels the finality. It seems hopeless.
Which brings us to the desperate endgame. Part 6, Carton steps up. The final card.
Carton's there, right after the verdict. Calm, gentle with Mr. Laurie, reminds it of something he said way back at the first trial about Darnay's life being saved for Lucie's sake, foreshadowing his own intentions now.
He has a plan, driven by that promise to Lucie to do anything for her.
And his leverage is Barsad, the spy, who, it turns out, is Solomon Cross, Miss Pross's long-lost brother.
Carton confronts Barsad, reveals he knows everything Barsad's spying, his connection to Roger Cly.
And Jerry Cruncher provides the knockout blow. He saw Cly's funeral, knows the coffin was full of stones. Cly faked his death.
This gives Carton his guillotine card. Threatened to expose Barsad, a spy collaborating with another spy who faked his death, and Barsad is finished in Paris.
Barsad folds. He has no choice. He agrees to get Carton into the prison to see Darnay.
But first, Carton reveals another urgent threat. He's found out Madame Defarge plans to denounce Lucie, the child, and the doctor.
Using Lucie standing by the prison wall as pretext, claiming it was suspicious, maybe using the Wood Sawyer's testimony against them.
A denunciation for Madame Defarge would be fatal. They have to get out of Paris now.
Laurie has to arrange everything, carriage, papers, horses, instantly. He's all in.
And Carton gives Laurie that awful instruction. Tell Lucie about the specific danger to her child and father, because only that fear will make her leave Darnay's side. Otherwise, she'd stay and die with him. Heartbreaking calculation.
Carton then has his quiet moment outside Lucie's window. A silent blessing, a farewell.
Inside the prison, Darnay's counting the hours, facing the unknown horror of the guillotine. 52.
Barsad brings Carton in. Carton's calm, Darnay bewildered. Carton quickly drugs him.
He dictates that note for Darnay to write to Lucie, referencing their long-ago conversation about his wasted life.
They swap clothes. The switch is made. Barsad helps carry the unconscious Darnay, now dressed as Carton, out of the prison. Carton's instructions are clear. Get him to Laurie's coach. Don't revive him too quickly.
While the escape attempt is happening, Madame Defarge goes to enact her vengeance. She heads to Lucie's house to denounce them, leaving her knitting register with the vengeance.
But Miss Pross is waiting. Fiercely loyal, Madame Defarge demands to see Lucie. Miss Pross blocks her way. I am your match.
They struggle violently. English loyalty versus French revolutionary fury.
And Madame Defarge is killed. A flash and a crash. A gunshot, it seems, during the fight. Miss Pross is deafened, but has saved Lucie.
Jerry Cruncher is there. Helps the deafened, terrified Miss Pross. He has that moment of genuine repentance, wishing them well, hoping his own past fishing doesn't bring them bad luck.
He helps get everyone, Miss Pross, Lucie, the child, the doctor, the unconscious Darnay's Carton, into Laurie's carriage. The escape is nail-biting. Checkpoint after checkpoint. Laurie showing the papers. Each time they pass, relief. And the first danger passed.
And back in the prison, Carton waits calmly for the end, dressed as Darnay.
The scene at the guillotine. 6 tumbrils. The huge crowd. The women knitting right at the front, including the vengeance, still counting heads.
Carton comforts a young seamstress, another innocent victim. She finds peace in his strength, talks of heaven.
And Carton has that final famous vision. He sees the future he's bought with his life. I see the lives for which I lay down my life.
Sees Lucie and Darnay happy, their child named Sydney. Sees the doctor restored, at peace. Mr. Laurie living out his days, helping them.
He sees himself holding a sanctuary in their hearts, redeemed not by his life, but by his death. His final thoughts are of peace and resurrection. It is a far, far better thing that I do.
Wow. Just recounting it all, it's incredibly powerful. We went from 1780s London and Paris, the social rot, the brewing storm.
So the personal tangles, the trial, the fragile peace, right into the terror, the denunciation, the sacrifice.
It really shows Dickens weaving personal lives into this epic historical canvas. The themes just jump out the chasm between rich and poor, what drives revolution, the horror it can unleash.
But also the flip side, right? The power of love, fierce loyalty like Miss Pross's, and Carton's ultimate self-sacrifice. These human elements shining through the darkness.
And thinking about why this matters to you, listening now, it's because these extremes of human behavior, the societal pressures, the choices people make under fire, they're timeless, aren't they?
Absolutely. Injustice, the potential for societal breakdown, personal redemption.
Yeah.
These things don't just belong to history books.
And that final thought the text leaves us with, about history repeating itself, crushing people with similar hammers produces the same tortured forms. Sowing aggression reaps the same fruit.
It's a warning, isn't it, about the consequences of injustice. It makes you wonder how we avoid those cycles today.
And where does something like Carton's sacrifice fit? Is that personal goodness enough to break the pattern? Or just a beautiful, tragic exception?
A profound question to end on. Does individual sacrifice change the larger historical tide? Dickens seems to offer hope, but also leaves that unsettling question hanging.
Definitely leaves you thinking. Well, that was our deep dive into these powerful excerpts from A Tale of Two Cities.
Hope it gave you a richer sense of the story, the characters, the enduring questions Dickens raises. Thanks for joining us.